subscribe.
Just look at this for a second. Even if you're just listening or scrolling right now, just look at this game. Does this look like a good game? Does this look like fun to play? Well, it isn't. How to Train Your Dragon 2, unlike the movie it's based on, is not a quality product. I hate to bash on games too much because no matter what, someone put their time and effort into this. Still, I can't help but be extremely negative about this one. It's just awful. Really, it plays like shit, feels like shit, looks like shit, so I gotta call it what it is. Let's be real though, this game was never meant to be good. It's a cash grab, a licensed video game meant to trick kids who like the movie into getting it. Games like this don't have standards. It's a void where some kids' possible love for a medium goes to die and their parents' money falls into someone's profits somehow. I bought this game as a joke, and honestly, I didn't know what I was thinking. It wasn't funny, it was sad. Don't be like me, stay far, far away from this game.
1 out of 10!
When it comes to LEGO games, it doesn't really matter which one you pick, they're all going to play relatively similarly. You're going to have 3D platforming mixed with some basic combat and an open world depending on how modern you get. To me, what makes a LEGO game good or bad is how the designers make their levels, and what extra mechanics they add. Luckily, LEGO Harry Potter Years 1 through 4 happens to be a favorite of mine. As someone who grew up watching each new movie release as they came out, Harry Potter holds a special place in my heart, as does this game. I can't say it's great or amazing, it's still another LEGO game at the end of the day, but the details and fun gags LEGO games are known for are greatly appreciated here. It also helps that I think LEGO Harry Potter Years 1 through 4 is one of the better designed games. Levels on average are pretty enjoyable, the way they translated scenes from the movies into the game was pretty well done, and I also like walking around Hogwarts. My favorite feature of this game, though, has to be the different spells characters can use. It's a versatile ability that allows for a lot of cool gameplay moments. It's small, but I also like how some characters have different spells based on their skills or their allegiance. I had a blast making a backstory for my custom character based on the spells I gave them. All in all, LEGO Harry Potter Years 1 through 4 is a good time. It's a fun casual gaming experience whether you're playing co-op or alone. While most LEGO games can say this, I think Years 1 through 4 is one of the better ones, and if you're a Harry Potter fan especially, give it a shot.
7 out of 10!
LEGO Star Wars has to be one of the all-time classic video games. I'd be hard-pressed to find someone who hasn't at least played this game at a friend's house. For many, it's the quintessential LEGO game. It set the bar for LEGO games to come, but I gotta say, it's been outdone many times now from a pure video game standpoint. If you want some easy-to-digest Star Wars fun, there really is no better game, although Skywalker Saga looks pretty good and I haven't played it yet, so I'm ignoring it for now. Even for a LEGO game though, it's pretty bare bones. The character actions are really basic. You get to attack, shoot, maybe throw something, and if you're a Jedi, move specific objects to specific locations. There's not much stuff you can do with the characters in general. Even if there was, there isn't really an overworld to mess around in. I don't mean to bash on the cantina, but it's really not that fun in its own right, just a means to get to the next level in my opinion. Also, a lot of people my age have a certain nostalgia for the presentation of these pre-voice acted LEGO games, and hey, don't get me wrong, I love the silent comedy as much as the next guy, but I can't help but cringe a little at the presentation. It hasn't really aged that well. But hey, I like going through the levels, reliving the films, unlocking the characters, trolling my buddy in co-op, and I can't take that away from LEGO Star Wars The Complete Saga. This is always a good time, just don't expect too much from it.
7 out of 10!
I like Metal Gear Solid 2, but I don't understand it. This game's plot is so weird. Whenever I think I'm getting a grasp of it, another curveball is immediately thrown at me. Instead of trying to criticize the plot, let me touch on the gameplay first. MGS2 is a great evolution of the first game. While the original Metal Gear Solid never really felt limited to me, not counting a few occasions, this sequel introduced new things that Metal Gear never felt complete without. Shooting in first person feels like a no-brainer these days, but I remember when that wasn't necessary. MGS2 also takes these new mechanics to their full extent. I love getting the jump on enemies and holding them down lest they want to get shot. Thank God for peeking around corners too, making it easier to see what's up ahead. While the mechanics of Metal Gear Solid 2 are enjoyable, I have more problems with the game's progression. There's quite a lot of backtracking, and it doesn't help that the setting looks pretty much all the same. It feels like I'm being sent on a wild goose chase throughout the whole game, and I know that makes sense given the plot, but it doesn't make the game any more fun. I don't find the bosses that much fun either. I usually feel this way with Metal Gear as well. When the plot forces you out of cover to fight someone, all of a sudden those intuitive mechanics become clumsy and frustrating. Okay, I don't think I can dance around the plot any longer. My brief notes are as follows. I like Raiden, Snake, Rose, Ocelot, Solidus for the shits and giggles. I don't like Dead Cells as they feel rather inconsequential and I find them pretty one note. The actual overarching plot I really like, but in a distanced sort of manner. I don't want to really analyze it, I'd rather just enjoy the crazy stuff that happens to Raiden and company and go on my day. There's a lot to digest with this game, but but before I get in too over my head, I'll just say it's a fun action game with good graphics, music, writing, mechanics, and a truly insane story.
7 out of 10!
Metal Gear Solid 3 is, pardon the pun, the most solid, inoffensive addition to the franchise. It seems like everyone loves this game, and I do too. Let's start with the plot, which I actually feel like I can talk about this time. It has that same Metal Gear writing, but this time around it feels much easier to grasp and get immersed. It's a great origin story for Snake, I mean, Big Boss. Okay, yeah, there's still hints of that convoluted lore, but you don't need to know that to enjoy this story. I was engaged just going through the motions with our main character. You're in the past this time, which means there's less tech at your disposal, but this isn't much of a hindrance because careful observation of your surroundings will yield good results. I like this approach too, because I spend less time looking at my radar and more through Snake's eyes. I will maintain that the boss fights aren't really that great. They're cool story moments, sure, but all the gameplay actions feel tuned around stealth. When you're in the open and you have to suddenly play an action game because of the plot, I get drawn out, both by the mechanics and the weird boss patterns and AI the devs had to implement to compensate for this problem. I also don't like some of the more open areas in the game for the same mechanical reasons, and when I get spotted, the odds are so stacked against you I feel the need to reset all the time, leading to a frustrating loop. Metal Gear Solid 3 is a game of many highs and a few low lows. Regardless of the problems I mentioned previously, the other stuff in this game is great. The music is amazing, the graphics and animation have a great blend of realism and that signature Kojima quirk. If you played a Kojima game, you know what I'm talking about. The climax of this game, man, I will never forget it. It's not all top marks to me, but when MGS gets good, it's one of the best games I've ever played.
9 out of 10!
I did not expect to like Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker as much as I did. I've heard more mixed opinions on it, mostly given its structure, but it feels like those structural changes they made were meant for a player like me. I love the mission structure. It makes the whole game much easier to swallow. The management stuff I wasn't really sold on until later in the game when I started doing side ops with other soldiers. Those are some fun challenges, and upon further reflection, all the mother base stuff is pretty much handled automatically or without much consequence, so I can largely focus on the main missions. I like the plot here as well. It's pretty easy to understand, although not as much as, say, MGS3, but I still found it really entertaining. I liked seeing Big Boss as this damaged character, having to start from scratch, literally kidnapping soldiers from the field, scrambling to make a home for himself. It's interesting to watch. The actual gameplay is largely the same as previous games, but there's some vital quality of life improvements that make this my preferred control scheme so far. Aiming is way easier. Now I feel like I can reliably hit targets, and that makes those action sequences a lot less frustrating to handle. It's also nice that you can call in supply drops in case the fight is going a little long. I'd be giving out easy 10s to this game if it wasn't for one thing. The post-game stuff. I don't know who thought it was a good idea to make players grind for parts, but it's annoying. Not soon after I started the grind, I said it wasn't worth it and stuck with the original ending I got, which is good enough for me. If I want to know the extra lore stuff, I'll just look it up on YouTube.
9 out of 10!
What is left to say about Sonic 06? This game has been beaten to a bloody pulp by the internet, so much that I feel kind of bad for it. I mean, throughout all of this thrashing, I still believe 06 has a soul. There's something there. Maybe I'm blind because this was my first Sonic game. The first one I didn't have to go to a friend's house to play. It's kind of admirable to me that after all the content I've watched criticizing this game, I can still come back, play the whole thing through, and still kind of like it? Maybe I'm a bit masochistic. Everyone knows this game sucks. It's not just that it's glitched up the ass, but the story is a wild goose chase. A lot of tasks are tedious, the controls are awful, the NPCs are bland, the load times, I mean everyone knows about the load times. This game is a train wreck, but one that everyone had to see. One that people still can't stop talking about. I mean, look at me. It's funny how 06 turned into this gaming landmark. I mean, this game was so botched that old Sega wanted nothing more than to kill it and forget about it. But nowadays, fans won't let people forget Sonic 06, including Sega, the ultimate punching bag. The series is self-deprecating joke. Look, it's a bad game, but I like it. I like it for the ironic fate it got, and all the memories I have playing it as a kid. I can't give it a good score. It doesn't deserve one. But regardless of what this end card says, I'll still probably be in the corner replaying my favorite bad game.
3 out of 10!
I remember the commercials for this one, and I was pretty excited for Sonic Unleashed. It was the next game in the lineup after I had developed my new Sonic obsession. It might be shocking to hear then that I didn't really like this one at first play. I believe I traded it in for something else soon after, and it took me until 2019 to finally give it a second chance and finish the whole thing. And you know what? I'm glad I did. Sonic Unleashed is a strange title in the franchise. Ironically fitting with the game's themes, this seems to have some of the most loved and some of the most hated pieces of the whole franchise. This was the first console outing for the boost formula of Sonic games, and I still think it has some of, if not the best levels in that formula. Blistering fast, always testing your reflexes and level knowledge if you want those high scores. I hear some people complain about the QuickTime events, but if you think about it, the whole level is really just a bunch of QuickTime events. I don't mind them. In fact, I think they work quite well here. And on the other side of the coin, we have the Hedgehog. This part of Unleashed got absolutely destroyed by critics back in the day, but I think people were a little harsh on it back then. The Hedgehog levels still aren't peak game design, but there is some fun to be had. I was surprised at how deep the combat actually got as you level Sonic up. I like ripping down foes, and the platforming can be engaging too. This game will chug when a lot of enemies or other objects are on screen, and when the game starts to lag, it gets a lot more unfun. Sonic Unleashed still looks great though, even at 5 FPS. Everything is really high detail for the Xbox 360. And the soundtrack, my god, maybe my favorite soundtrack in the whole series. Personally, I think Sonic Unleashed is a good time. You just gotta cut it some slack. Maybe split your sessions between night and day if you can. Come in expecting some of that high speed and heavy combat, and you may find it fun.
7 out of 10!
My opinions have really soured on The Force Unleashed as of recently. I used to love this game. It was a Star Wars power fantasy. Starkiller is a machine, tearing down everything in his path, and when I was into this game, it felt great. But maybe I was glossing over a few things back then. When I replayed it for my list, I couldn't help but be drawn out by the stiff controls. When you look at the gameplay of The Force Unleashed, you might not be able to tell, but everything feels like it's on the slightest delay, and the physics felt oddly heavy. No, it's not my TV, unless maybe it's working for the Jedi. I kept playing it all the way through, but I never got used to it. It was always there, just putting a wall between me and the stuff on screen. Not that the stuff on screen was that pretty. The Force Unleashed has wonderful art direction, but the graphical quality is pretty low. It feels awkwardly between what the Xbox 360 is capable of and what the previous generation was capable of. But hey, I can't knock this game's world. It's Star Wars done well. It really plays into the more interesting part of the universe for me, the time between the prequels and the original trilogy. It puts you right in the era of hunting down those last Jedi, trying to find those that eluded the Empire thus far. It's cool, and I find the story almost just as cool. The secret nature of your apprenticeship with Vader, learning bits and pieces about what's going on as you go through your missions is exciting. I love watching it, but when I have to play the game, I ended up dreading it more often. It's a shame that I ended up not really liking The Force Unleashed at the end. I'd like to see another proper attempt at remaking it, but for now, this ain't it.
4 out of 10!
What can I really say about Just Dance? It's another series that's pretty much the same from release to release. All that changes is the song list. Their dance game formula works, so why would they change it? To me, Just Dance has always felt like a tired series. I didn't really play the series much at all. I was actually a little discouraged because of the yearly releases. I mean, which one do I buy? It feels like every game has a handful of great picks and then is filled out with a bunch of others that are just kind of there. Just Dance 4 admittedly has more hits than misses when speaking about the song list. It helps that I was listening to a lot of pop around the time of this game's release, so there's a lot I recognize. There's also a decent selection of older songs too, things I never would have thought of. Ever want to dance to Rickroll? Also, if there's any game that works best on Kinect, it has to be Just Dance. No one really wants to dance with a controller in their hands. It's ideal to move around freely, and so the Kinect version of Just Dance always gets marks for that, even if it's hard to cram 4 people in front of the sensor. Of all the Just Dance games I have, this one we go to the most at parties, just because we're that generation. I guess that has to count for something.
6 out of 10!
Another Just Dance. Nothing much new to say. Just Dance is a proven formula. It works, especially in a party setting. I'm not really much of a dancer, but if the Kinect is set up, everyone is down to play some Just Dance. It's just dumb fun. But this one didn't really do it for me. Yeah, it's the song list. There's a few in here that are okay, but most of the songs I don't like. A lot of my friends like this list for the most part, but in my case, well, I'm reviewing the game, and I think there's a lot of stinkers in here. The song list is the deciding factor in whether you'll end up buying a Just Dance game or not. I mean, really, what else do these games have? The gameplay is just someone in front of a green screen doing moves for you. Maybe you could criticize the tracking, but on the Kinect it's really not that much of an issue. Not that it matters, because when it did mess up for us, no one even cared. We just kept dancing. Although, I won't be dancing to this one.
4 out of 10!
Another day, another Just Dance. At this point, I was starting to give up. Playing Just Dance for a review is probably the dumbest thing I've ever done. These games aren't made for reviews. They're meant to be bought and played at parties so people have something to do. It's fine, it can be fun, but how are you supposed to be critical about these games? All I can talk about is the quality of the songs, and there's not a lot of objective stuff to hang on to there. Personally, I thought the song list was all over the place. Some decent ones, but some really bad ones. I know it's funny to see What Does the Fox Say in here, but I cannot listen to that song anymore. It had its time and then went away like it should have. It didn't need to be immortalized here. Every time we play this one, people get surprised to see the Tetris theme and proceed to have a goofy few minutes trying to act like Tetris blocks. Just Dance 2015 is whatever. Listen, you don't need me to tell you if X Just Dance game is good or not. Just look up the song list, and if you like what you see, bring it to a party and enjoy looking like a dumbass.
5 out of 10.
Man, I really wanted to like Sonic Free Riders. When I was a kid, I was super into this game. It was actually my main source of exercise for a solid couple of weeks, but in retrospect, this game was never good. I tolerated Sonic Free Riders because I loved the Riders games and just wanted to believe that the next one would be good, but this ain't that. Let's dance around the elephant in the room for a bit and talk about the story. It sucks. Even back in the day, I was sad they decided to just use pictures of Sonic characters talking to each other. They also did a Grand Prix plot, which I found super boring. It gets all the characters together, but they've already done it before. I gotta say though, this game looks pretty, like graphically. The animations are broken because of that elephant in the room, but the other stuff is pretty nice. I like seeing these designs in HD, even if it is a little more vanilla than previous Riders games. I also really like the music. The tracks are repetitive, but at least they repeat good music. Okay, now let's talk about why this game is bad. Surprise! It's the Kinect. Sonic Free Riders sucks at tracking your movements. Every action, and I mean every action, is a struggle. Even just navigating menus doesn't work half the time. In actual races, I always feel like I have to overcompensate to turn. I'll be doing matrix moves and Sonic will refuse to turn more than 20 degrees. Contextual actions freak out a lot too, because sometimes the Kinect can't read when I have my hands above my head or directly in front of me like some actions tell you to do. I'll say again, I really want to like this game. I fear Riders won't come back, but I like the series. It's just that Free Riders was a disaster thanks to the Kinect. If I could play this with a controller, I'd be singing a much different tune, but we don't live in that world unfortunately. As it is, Free Riders is just another in the list of bad Sonic games.
4 out of 10.
Merry Christmas.